Peace, fam. As promised, this is chapter 2 of Black Politics and Baseline Theory. Before getting into chapter 2, I just want to say it's important that you see chapter 1 because the metaphor that I use in terms of both talking book and baseline is a metaphor or context that you really should keep in the back of your mind. In other words, when this is chapter 2, but chapter 2 builds on chapter 1. And as chapter 3 is going to build on chapters 1 and 2. So that is part of that baseline of understanding. Let me just give you a quick example of how a baseline of understanding works. Well before I was political, during the 60s, when I was still a child, there was a Black liberation movement. That movement consisted of several aspects and trends. Some of them leaned towards civil rights and desegregation. Other trends lent themselves more to human rights, self-defense, and self-determination. So there were a lot of competing trends. But regardless of how we saw it, the government saw us as insurgents. Okay, they looked at what we were doing as insurgency. That is a military/political term. Okay, and since they viewed us as insurgents, they implemented counterinsurgency. Matter of fact, the counterinsurgency program that they implemented was called COINTELPRO, which actually stands for Counterintelligence Program, which is clearly a military terminology, right? So we didn't know that because we were new to this level of struggle. Not so much the basic civil rights part. We were new to that too, but other aspects of it in terms of self-determination and things like that, a lot of that was new. And one of the things that they were able to do because it was new was to play us. Let's just put it that way. And one of the ways that they would do it, they would do something like this. They would send somebody in and they would say, yo, man, you heard about Brother Abdul, right? No, what about Brother Abdul? Yeah, man, he be moving kind of strange, man. You know, people ain't really feeling the way he be moving. Really? In what respects? Man, you know, people talking about money coming up missing. Somebody said they saw him downtown at a restaurant talking to some white dude, and nobody know who that white dude is. You know what I'm saying? Really? Oh shit! Wow. All right. Well. Thanks, man. Let me know. And then that brother would take that information, and he'd go over to somebody. Yo, man, you heard about Brother Abdul, right? No. What about him? Man, I heard he be stealing money and giving it to the FBI, meeting with them downtown somewhere. Really? So now, without any evidence whatsoever, Brother Abdul has been denounced as a snitch. That was known as putting a snitch jacket on somebody. And people were able to do that because they didn't have any guardrails in place. Okay, they didn't have any guardrails in place, no methodology for dealing with that stuff because they weren't aware of what was even happening. Okay, but fast forward, when I came along during the 80s, that type of thing couldn't happen anymore because people had already built their baseline of understanding to let them know that you don't do that type of thing. So if somebody come to me, I was always taught how to deal with that type of thing. So somebody come to me and say, hey man, you heard about Brother Abdul, right? No, what about him? Well, yeah, man, he's moving kind of straight. Oh, really? In what respect? Well, yeah, I heard he was stealing. Oh, you know what? Hold on. Whoa. Wait a minute, bro. Listen, if you have some information that Brother Abdul is stealing money and possibly meeting with people and he's not who he says he is, brother, you need to come with that information publicly. Let Brother Abdul respond to that. And we need to have some discussions in the light. We can't be having shit all up in the dark and on the DL and all that old bullshit. Okay? And see, that's what happens when you have a baseline of understanding. But let's fast forward to 2025, and guess what? All you have to do is say something on the internet. You don't have to have no proof. I said something to a brother the other day. He was saying something about a person who I'm familiar with the allegations, but I don't say nothing about it because I have not investigated it to find out anything. So what I look like saying something. So when I said so, I said, well, brother, where's the information? He said, oh, the information's all over the internet. I'm like, well, goddamn, man. I mean, as bad as they are, at least when they haul your black ass into court, they present some evidence and say, well, this is why you guilty. They don't say, well, he's guilty and the information's out there. If you want to find out, just go out and get it. What kind of backwards bullshit thinking is that? Brothers and sisters, this is why I try to do this channel here. I don't ask nobody for no money. I'm fine. I'm not rich. And if everybody say, hey man, look, I like what you do. Let me send you $50,000. Well, that's cool too. Don't get it twisted. But I'm not asking you for a dime. The little bit of money that I have to pay for the tools I use, I don't care. I don't care. Brothers and sisters have lost their lives struggling in the interest of black people. Okay? Malcolm X, Medgar Evers, Martin Luther King, people assassinated. We got people, and there's a lot of people you don't even know. People that were locked up during the 60s and 70s died in prison fighting for black people's rights. The only thing I might ask you to do is click a thumbs up, and that's only so other black people can see the film, see the video as well, and maybe learn something. Other than that, I ain't asked you for a goddamn dime. I do ask you for your attention, and I ask you to try to think clearly at what's being said. I was looking at my other video, chapter 1, and people making remarks, well, about the Democratic Republican. I ain't saying no about no goddamn Democrats and Republicans. I'm looking at their comments. I'm like, well, what friggin' video were they watching? With a lot of confusion, brothers. Since I use the talking book metaphor to try to make things as clear as humanly possible. You don't have to agree, but at least make sure you're at least commenting on the same lesson plan, as it were. And that's what it is. It's meant to be a lesson plan. It's meant to be political education because nobody gets, now you might not like the education. That's fine. But it's meant to be political education. It's meant for me to take what I learned since the 80s over the years as a political organizer, as a political activist, and to try to synopsize that information to pass it on to the next generation. Because I swear to God, man, I've been seeing some we got a movement of disunity. There's actually a disunity movement. It's like saying, well, we have to demarcate ourselves from the other black people, the other Africans in the diaspora. We got to make sure that we're not mistaken for them. I never heard no dumb shit like that in my life. I mean, that's, brothers and sisters, I'm sorry for the rant, but I got to say this. It's one thing to walk forward slowly. It's one thing to be standing still. It's another thing to be walking backwards, and it's yet another thing to be running backwards. Brothers and sisters, we are running backwards. I have never seen such backwards thinking among black people in all my days. I'm sorry. And the reason I have to say this is because as you're going to see with this tool that we're using here today, the one called internal, external, because we can't understand our situation unless we understand it in its totality. And understanding it in its totality means to understand both the internal and the external. Okay, you just can't understand one and think you have knowledge. You have to understand both to have knowledge of the subject. All right, so that's my rant for the moment. And we're going to go on to talk about the internal and the external and how they are used as tools of analysis. And we're going to use a historical precedent just so to make it kind of clear. All right, so Harriet Tubman, one of our great sheroes, was addressing the external issue. In other words, what was being done to us in terms of slavery. That was an external force applied to us, right? And that's what she was addressing. But if you see the external, you can see also there's that little dot there that's also part of the internal. And it represents the fact that many people were still not down with the program. In other words, as Malcolm X pointed out, you had the house Negro and you had the field Negro. Now, I'm pretty sure that Harriet, for security reasons, wasn't going to be letting too many house Negroes know about the plans. I mean, again, that's part of the internal aspect of the situation. Now, fam, let's take another look at another historical figure. His name was Carter G. Woodson, and he wrote the book, The Miseducation of the Negro. What he was addressing was the internal issues that face Black people in terms of being miseducated. That was an internal issue. Now, you might see that little other area there, that white area, that represents the uh, the source of the miseducation. But he understood the source of the miseducation, but he wasn't dealing with the source. He was dealing directly with his people and talking directly to us because he was dealing with the internal issues. So now you have a situation there, and this is when you look at the totality of the issue, you see one person dealing with the internal, one person dealing with the external, and together they are addressing the totality of the issue. Okay, let's bring it up a little bit close up to date. You've heard of Black Lives Matter. This is not a pro Black Lives Matter video or anything like that, but I'm using them for an example because they're known. So Black Lives Matter is a outwardly facing, dealing with external contradiction. Okay, so there was no reason for them to actually be dealing with things that are internal. Conversely, there's a group called Mothers Against Senseless Killings out of Chicago. They are dealing with the internal issues inside the Black community. And so when you see something like that, when you have a clear baseline of understanding about the internal and the external, you're not confused when somebody gets up and say, "Oh well, y'all always talking about Black Lives Matter, and how come when something happens that Black people did, you don't want to say nothing?" You know, that's because one, they're ignorant. But two, sometimes we fall into that too and wonder, like, well, maybe they should be saying, no, 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 no. They are dealing with the external. The question you can question them on is how well you're dealing with the external. You can question people that's dealing with the internal, how well they're dealing with the internal. But you can't accuse those who are dealing with the external of not addressing the internal or vice versa. That's just confusion. Don't be confused. Okay, fam. The next chapter, chapter 3, is going to be called Autopsy. And we're also going to return to the other tools that I had mentioned before, but they're going to be spread out over different chapters. And what's going to happen at each chapter, I'm going to try to apply the tool to the thing being discussed till it gets to the point where you can take any of these tools, historical, political, subjective, objective, internal, external, and just have them just become so transparent and so natural that whenever you look at issues of concern to Black people, you will know how to examine it without being confused by all the additional forces that always are trying to distract us from our Black agenda. So I will see you on chapter 3, and chapter 3 is called Autopsy. One last thing, fam. You might hear me say this from time to time, probably to the point of getting sick of me saying it, but I must say it anyway. Everybody can't do everything, but everybody can do something. You have to be determined to do something, anything that's going to move the struggle forward. If you can only find it in your heart to click on the up thumb so that other people can see the video, okay, well, maybe that's all you could do. I think you could probably do more, but if you could do that, at least do that. Okay, everybody can't do everything, but everybody can do something. And I'm so tired of all these channels that always tell you, oh yeah, we're not going to do this, and we're going to not do that. And, oh yeah, we can't get involved in it. Yeah, you're right. Some of it we should not get involved with, but I'd like to hear more people talk about, well, just exactly what do we need to get involved. And so part of this is giving us the tools of analysis so we can look at stuff clearly, ask the right questions, and understand exactly what it is that we're doing. Because again, fam, sorry to keep beating on this, we've gone backwards. We've definitely gone backwards, but I'm gonna do what I can as much as possible to help bring us forward because, well, everybody can't do everything, but everybody can do something.
It's so fuzzy.